Good morning, everybody. If everybody can take a seat, we're going to get started. Good morning, everybody. We're going to open up in prayer, and then we'll get through our announcements for today. So if you can bow your heads with me. Dear Heavenly Father, we are just so thankful and grateful for you and your love for us. With so many sick kids and moms out there, I just pray that you can help heal and comfort them at this time. I also pray for Heidi and her talk today about sleep training. I know a lot of mamas out here need to hear what she has to say today. So we thank you, God. We love you. In your son's name we pray. Amen. Good morning. Okay, so let's start with some announcements. Okay, first off, we have Neighbor to Neighbor coming up through the church. I know we just did our boxes for Operation Christmas Child, but Neighbor to Neighbor is another way that you guys can get, you could donate and help kids in need. We have some baptisms and dedications. Will be Sunday, November 20th. So if you guys are interested, you can look on the CPC website. And we also have a membership class coming up. So if you guys want to get more connected or learn more about membership at the church, that's on the 30th. And it's going to be a Zoom call. So a little bit easier than getting in with this, all the sicknesses going on. Our Women's Christmas Brunch for the church is on December 10th in the sanctuary. You could get your tickets online. It's really a fun event, and it's very festive, and it's always a good time to either connect with your small group or bring friends from outside. We have a play date coming up on the 7th, and it's another one that's going to have all the bounce houses, and the kids love these play dates, and it's indoors, so it'll be a good one. And here's a little bit more information on the holiday play date. Are there postcards? We might have some cards, I'm not sure. But if you need any more information, you can ask us. Michelle usually has a lot of information. Okay, so, and one more thing. You guys, on your tables, there are surveys for the speakers. And if you could, you could start filling it out, but wait until after to complete it, because Heidi's on here as well, so you want to wait till after her talk to finish filling that out. Okay, so let's talk about Heidi. I was so excited when I found out Heidi was speaking, because I met Heidi years ago at a Stroller Strides, a Mommy and Me workout class, which is also really fun. If any of you guys are interested in working out with your kids, it's still around. I think, who's running it now? Do you know, Heidi? Rochelle, yeah, that's right. So it's like Fit for Mom, if you Google that, really fun. But we met there, and it was so fun. Your little guy was, a newborn. Yes, and so it was so fun. She had so much knowledge and tips, so I always loved hearing what she had to say when she was there. So Heidi and her family live in Livermore, and then how old is he? 5? Oh my gosh, he's 5 years old. So that was, a long time ago. She has a background in early childhood development, working as a postpartum doula and a former Happiest Baby on the Block educator. She enjoys working one-on-one with families to share an individualized approach to getting more restorative sleep. So I'm sure there's some sleep-deprived mamas out here, so you might want to talk to her at the end. She just has so much experience and knowledge on sleep. So yeah, I'm really excited to hear what she has to say. So everybody, can you please welcome Heidi?
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's a little loud. I'm Heidi Lovens, And like Kelly said, I'm a certified baby and toddler sleep coach, and I also have a certification to work with families created through foster and adoption. And so what this means is really finding the most gentle techniques that I can possibly offer to families, helping families to make sure that they have a really solid and secure attachment with their child, really before working on any kind of sleep training beforehand. I'm also a regional director for the Association of Professional Sleep Consultants. So what this is really putting on monthly events for other sleep coaches in my region, and just collaborating with other sleep consultants around the world to talk about difficult cases, to talk about new things that are happening. I'm sure you all know, like, every day it feels like there's a new product on the market and there's something being recalled. So we talk a lot about that so that parents can really be educated about what they should and shouldn't be using with their children. I also worked as a postpartum doula. So the first family I ever worked with had twins, and I worked with them overnight. So it really helped me to understand like how to take care of babies and how to implement a really good schedule right from the start. So you never really want to do sleep training until baby's healthy and gaining weight and about 4 or 5 months old, but right from the start, you can really start working on a healthy sleep foundation to help make each step of the way a little bit easier. Let's see, it's not working. There we go. So why is sleep important? So sleep is important because it's essential. It's essential for babies and children, adults, everyone. If we don't get the right amount of sleep, we are grumpy, we're tired, we're more susceptible to illness and getting sick, and mentally, physically, it can put a really, hardship on you. It's even been suggested that lack of sleep, especially for new parents, can cause postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, can just be more difficult on a relationship, right? So when you're taking care of your child and you're exhausted, you might take it out on your partner when really there's no reason to other than you're just being exhausted and, taking it out on them. And then for growth and development. So really this is the most important time when babies are developing during that REM sleep during the night and throughout the day. For them, losing even a little bit of sleep for a baby really impacts them, and you can see it right away. A baby that's newborn might be, even 20 minutes behind on a nap, and you can really see that they're fussy, they're agitated, they're overtired, and it makes it harder for them to fall asleep and stay asleep too. So, next we're going to talk about age-appropriate sleep. So age-appropriate sleep matters a lot when your baby is first born. So newborns to about 4 months old only really need to be awake for a short amount of time. Sometimes that's only 30 or 40 minutes to an hour and a half before they're ready for sleep again. So what we see is often a baby will wake up, it'll be a diaper change, a feed, probably another diaper change, and then wanting to offer them sleep again. And what happens is if a newborn goes for too long without sleep, they get overtired and they get fussier and they have a harder time feeding, they have a harder time falling asleep and staying asleep during that time. So in those first couple weeks especially, you really want to try to aim to offer sleep for your baby every 40 minutes or so that they're getting the adequate amount of sleep. And as babies get older, you can see here, the 6 to 9 month period, babies are going for 2.5 to 3 hours of awake time before they need to be offered a nap again. And they're really starting to be able to consolidate those naps. So instead of, as a newborn, maybe 20 or 30-minute naps all day long, now you're getting a good stretch with a 2-hour nap or an hour-and-a-half nap, so your baby's starting to consolidate that and sleep better, a little bit more on a schedule as well. So at that really 4 to 5 month period is when I like to change the schedule from following those awake windows to suggesting a schedule that you can follow based on those awake windows. And then, as you can see, once children become in that toddler stage, that 1.5 to 3 years old, I still really like to offer naps because developmentally, they still need to have a nap. Going the full day of being awake without rest can cause a lot of tantrums, a lot of exhaustion, and even less sleep overnight because they're so tired. So I really like to suggest to parents to try to offer a nap or at least quiet time until their kids are closer to 3 years old. For example, my son is 5 now. He's in kindergarten, and they do a 20-minute rest time. So they have yoga mats, and they sit on their yoga mats. They're allowed to read a book or play quietly as long as they're contained in their little space. And it's really great because it's just a little bit of downtime. It helps him to sort of control his body and emotions. And if he were to fall asleep, it would really hurt our bedtime because he's 5. He doesn't really need a nap anymore, and it would probably push bedtime from 7:30 or 8 to like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So really paying attention to children's age and what they actually need. And then it's really individual from child to child too. So sleep training methods, like I talked about earlier, I really like to focus on the most gentle techniques possible. And there's really only a handful of techniques out there. And it can feel kind of overwhelming because you hear so many different things from friends or family, your sister-in-law, mom's groups, hearing, oh, we did this and it worked great, or oh, we did that, or just to cry it out. And it can be really difficult because not every method works for everyone. I had a client earlier this year who had been using the cry it out method. She had been putting her 6-month-old in the crib, walking out, not going back until the morning. She had been using this method for over a month. Her pediatrician suggested it, and said she was emailing them all the time, asking questions, and the pediatrician said, like, just keep going, keep trying. And she reached out to me after getting my name and number, and she said, well, I've done cry it out, so I don't think anything else is going to work, right? Like, this is the most extreme thing I can do. And we looked at the overall schedule. We changed up naps a little bit to make sure that her baby was hitting the naps at the time that she needed to. Within a week, the baby was sleeping through the night using a really, really gentle method where the mom was in the room with the baby, helping her fall asleep, and then sort of phasing her way out. So I always tell families, to keep looking and keep finding a method that works for you and keep exploring and discovering why it is your child's not sleeping or why you're not sleeping, and try to get to like the root cause of that to help them sleep. Like I said, there are only a handful of actual, methods. There's the phase out method, which is really taking whatever you're doing and offering less and less each night or every couple of nights to wean back from what you're offering. So maybe baby's being fed all the way to sleep at night, and then you're gently placing them in the crib and sneaking out of the room, and then the baby wakes up every 30 minutes because the baby's looking for you again. So in a case like this, I would say, let's start feeding a little bit less and a little bit less so that you're working on putting your baby down tired, but still awake. And then you sort of wean that out, and then you're putting the baby down awake in the crib, and they're self-soothing. So that's a method that I use a lot, especially with smaller babies. There's a pick up, put down method where it's exactly that. You're picking up the baby when they're fussy, you're putting them back down, you're picking them up, you're putting them back down. It can be exhausting. You can feel like you're a little bit of a prisoner to the crib, but it's also a really good method, especially for young babies when you want to be there and support them and stay in the room with them. There's a controlled cry method, which is exactly that. It's anywhere, you can start off every minute or 3 minutes, and you come and go out of the room, you support your baby, you comfort them, you let them know you're there, and then you put them back down in the crib and you leave. For older kids, there's a sleep shuffle method that I use pretty much for every child like a year or older. It's very hands-on. You're sitting in the room with your child in a chair, and each night you start working your way out of the room. You kind of use it with like, oh, mommy forgot to feed the dog. I'll be right back. And you pop out of the room, even if it's just for 5 or 10 seconds, and you come back and praise your child. Say, good job, you stayed in your bed, or mommy told you I'd be right back, right? And you're always reinforcing that positive behavior. That's something that that to me and sleep training is really important, and just as a parent in general, trying to focus on the positive versus the negative to encourage that behavior even more. It can be really hard with sleep training. Like, you want to focus on the negative, like, well, this isn't working yet, right? But really focus on the tiny things, the wins that are working, and keep building on those every night and every day. And then there's the cry it out, right? Which I'm sure most of you know. Sometimes it can be a controlled cry it out where it's like a 5, 10, 15, or it could be a full overnight cry it out. Out of all of these methods, that's the only method I've never used myself personally or never suggested to a sleep client, just because I like to work on the more, supportive approaches. I do think it does work for a lot of families, and a lot of children really respond great to it. So if you've used it and it's worked for you, that's great, and I'm so happy. But I would say, if you're, thinking about sleep training, or somebody, I would say start off with the more gentle approaches and put that in your back pocket, and know that that can be something that you can use if you need to, but doesn't have to be the first approach to help you get a good night's sleep. So that's for kind of younger babies. And then for older children, I have tips for keeping older children in their bed. So maybe you had a great sleeper and now they're in their toddler bed and not controlled in their crib anymore, and they're getting out all night long. Their bedtime is just a mess because they keep walking out of their room, trying to find you, screaming for you, playing with toys. I'm sure, all the things, right? So trying to help them, first of all, to fall asleep independently, making sure that they're on an age-appropriate schedule, right? So if they're 3 or 4, but they're still taking a 2-hour nap, and now bedtime is taking 2 hours, I would look at that and say, how can we make adjustments to this schedule? What can we do to fix the schedule before having to do any kind of sleep training to begin with? I have a lot of clients that all we do is adjust naps, or cut out a nap for older kids, or offer a second nap for younger kids, and that helps their daytime sleep, and then nights go so much more smoothly that they don't even have to do sleep training, right? And that would be my goal for everyone, is what can we offer before having to do any crying or any upset or anything like that first. So helping them to fall asleep independently. If they are getting out of the room, coming out, it's not just sitting on the couch and saying, go back to bed, right, and expecting that from a child, but it's just taking their hand and quietly and calmly walking them back to their bed every single time. It might be 30 or 40 times the first couple nights, but really just bringing them back over and over. And if you talk to them, say, it's night-night time, and maybe you have something that you tell them every time, like, we need to go to sleep because it helps our body for more energy tomorrow, or whatever it is that you say to them, it's just calm and quiet and bring them right back to bed. And if they pop out a minute later, just walk them back again. If that's not working, then it might be time to start working on a sleep method. Maybe it would be like a sleep shuffle, where you're in there helping them to fall asleep, and really coming up with a plan that you can follow, that you feel confident in using every single night and following through, so that you can help them to fall asleep. Talking about it with your child too. So once they're a little bit older and they understand what's going on, they understand what you're expecting of them, talk about it. But don't talk about it while you're reading books and putting on pajamas. Talk about it all day long. Maybe you're in the car on the way to the park and you just randomly, casually bring it up with your child, so it's not such like a big thing for them, and it's not all of a sudden this abrupt thing that at bedtime you're like, well, by the way, I expect you to stay in your bed tonight, right? But you're really talking about it and getting them comfortable with that idea. Also, including them in the decision making. So I'm not saying like, okay, what time do you want to go to bed tonight, right? And letting them decide, but it's more about, okay, it's pajama time, and if your kid is throwing a tantrum, I don't want pajamas, we'll say, okay, you could have these pajamas or those pajamas. Which ones do you want? And really allowing them to feel like they have the control goes a really long way. We're going to read 3 books. Do you want to pick them out, or do you want mommy and daddy to pick them out, right? Things like that. Going to the store and letting them pick out their sheets that they get to sleep in every night, so that they can be excited about that and they feel that control, right? That's a big thing. And then Reward charts. So sticker charts work for a lot of kids, just putting like a little, making something together that you can hang in their room, that they get a sticker every morning when they stay in bed, or maybe even you started off slowly. If you can stay in bed at bedtime, mommy's going to give you a sticker and I'll put it on there as soon as you fall asleep, right? Or maybe going to Target or the dollar store and getting a bunch of toys that you think your child will love, putting them in a basket, showing them, and saying, tomorrow when you stay in bed, you get to pick something out of this prize box, right? It doesn't have to be big. It can be something really small. And then over time, it could be, a chocolate chip pancake breakfast or a TV breakfast, or do you want to go out for hot cocoa and muffins on the way to school? But you want to make it something that happens right away, so happens within like that first hour or so of waking up, so that you can acknowledge and praise them and reward them versus, okay, in a week I'll take you to the zoo, right? Because then like they're excited about it for a minute and they sort of lose momentum and focus on what it is you're trying to reward them for. So making sure that it happens really quickly can be important. The okay to wake light. So we have a hatch light. It's like about this big. You can change the colors on it. It has a sound machine on there too. And I love that for kids about 2.5 to 3 years or older. They start to understand staying in bed. They have the ability of self-control to stay in a place when you ask them to for a longer period of time. And the okay to wake light for us is red means bed and green means go, right? So at night we turn it on, it turns red with the sounds, it plays continuously all night long, and then at 7 o'clock in the morning when he's allowed to get up out of his room, the light turns green. Now that my son's 5, and I'm sure all of you probably were dealing with this or still are with the time change of like everybody waking up so much earlier, it's a little bit harder. We're still adjusting to it a bit. So now his new rule, and now that he's 5, it's, okay, well, you can wake up, but you have to stay in your room until the light turns green. You can turn your side lamp on, you can play quietly, you can read books, but it's not just getting up and starting your day until we get to this time. And so the day after the time change, I think he woke up at like 5:30, right, with the clocks adjusted. And so I adjusted his clock back a little bit, and we made tiny adjustments moving forward every day to get him closer to that 7 o'clock. And I'm really big on making small adjustments versus making a huge adjustment, because then you don't know if you've gone too far the opposite way, and then you have to rein it back. So teeny tiny adjustments every day. Another thing that could be helpful is putting a bell on their door, or I've even had clients put like a metal coat hanger on the outside of their child's door so that when the child comes to open it up, you can get to them a little bit faster. So instead of your child all of a sudden being in your room or out in the living room and they tiptoed out and you don't even know how long they've been standing there, you can hear that extra little sound. It slows them down. I'm not about locking the door and keeping them in there for safety reasons, and it just doesn't feel right to me as a mom to do that. But I have had clients that have had to put up a baby gate just to stop their child a little bit more. Most kids can climb over it, but it gives you that ability to get to them a little bit faster. There's also toddler alerts that you hang on the door, and if the door moves, it'll set an alert to your cell phone too. So there's lots of things out there, but really for older kids, it's about stopping them in their place, walking them back calmly and quietly, and if you still need to evaluate it from there, finding a sleep technique that works for you to help them to get to sleep. So routine. Routine is huge for all ages. Even the day that you bring your baby home from the hospital, setting a routine. And that's not a schedule, but more of a routine of bringing them outside and getting some natural sunlight, which helps to regulate and promote sleep even at nighttime. Having a consistent morning wake up. So if some mornings your baby wakes up at 6 and some days they wake up at 8 and we all enjoy that extra sleep in or having them sleep longer, it can actually be really helpful to wake them at that consistent time every day, especially as they get older, because then you can set their naps according to their wake schedule, and it just helps promote overall sleep to stay on that consistent time. Encouraging new skills. So when your baby's little, maybe learning to like tummy time or rolling or walking or talking, encouraging those skills during the day so that they don't disrupt nighttime sleep. A good example of this is when babies get to that point where they can pull themselves up in the crib and then they're like stuck there and they scream for you like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? This is really cool, but what do I do now? Teaching them and practicing that during the day outside of sleep time so that they can master that skill. And even if they wake up in the middle of the night, pull themselves up, they can get down on their own without needing to call for you, cry for you, and get your attention to come in. Same with even like when kids start walking, I always say, get them in the crib during the day, right? Even throw in some of their toys, fold their laundry on the floor, read a book, bring your computer in. As long as you're in there with your child, encouraging this place to be a happy, safe space, but also encourage those new skills to happen in the crib, because running in the crib is very different than running down the hallway or running on carpet or being outside. It has a different feel to your child, and so they might want to try practicing this at nighttime or during bedtime, which throws off the routine. So offering that outside of sleep time can be super helpful. And then especially important during sleep training, and it seems silly to even say this, and I say this every time with every client, is allowing for that extra time for cuddles and love. And it seems like, well, of course, I'm going to do that. But if you have a child that maybe you're co-sleeping with all night long, or maybe you're holding and rocking them to sleep, and now all of a sudden you're working on a method where they're in their crib right away, you as a parent might miss that. Like, it might feel nice at first, like, oh, okay, like I have my time back, but we miss it and our children miss it too. So making sure that we really put that time in during the day, during our bedtime routine, putting our phones down, putting down any distractions, and really focusing that time on our child goes a really long way. Like, they just want to feel all of that, and they want to feel seen, and they want that, and that will really help the nighttime routine go smoothly too. And then a part of, the nighttime routine, you don't always have to offer a bath. I have a lot of clients and friends that do a bath every night because it works in their schedule. They know how much it helps their child, but for us, like, it doesn't work every night. Sometimes I look at my clock, I'm like, oh, it's bedtime 5 minutes ago, we gotta go, right? But when you do offer the routine, making sure that you offer things, especially when children are younger, even in that same order, right? So maybe it's a bath and books and snuggles and say your good night prayers, and keeping them in the order and not just rushing through it to be done with it can really help your child get in the mindset and feel that it's bedtime. Last night, I was so tired. My son's been sick for weeks, and we put him in bed. He's been sleeping with us because he's been so sick, which is usually like a big no-no for me. But he's been in bed with us, and last night we put him to bed in his bed, and I kind of rushed out like, okay, I gotta finish prepping for tomorrow, and I just want to sit down. And he called me 5 minutes later, and he said, Mommy, you forgot our prayers. And I was like, oh, you're right. Like, you totally did. And it was sort of like perfect coming here today and having that happen last night. Like, of course I did. Like, you're still laying here awake because I missed part of our bedtime routine, and we do this every single night. So just remembering to offer those things every night, and ideally in that same order, can be super helpful. And then the sleep environment. So the temperature of the room is really big. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends 68 to 72 degrees in a nursery. So making sure that you're keeping it on the cooler temperature. What happens, and one reason why baths can be so great for children and for adults, right? Like, if you're struggling with sleep, take a warm bath or take a warm shower before you get into bed, not only to wash off all the germs and it feels nice and relaxing, and it's a great cue to fall asleep. But what happens is the warm water actually lowers your core body temperature by even like half a degree, and that helps promote sleep. So it helps you to fall asleep faster and to stay asleep longer throughout the night. So some of the tips that work for kiddos work for us too. Keeping that cooler temperature in the room. What happens overnight is our body sort of goes into almost like hibernation mode. So keeping those cool temperatures, and then in the early morning, sometimes like that's when we crank up the heat. Like, maybe the thermostat goes on automatically, the heat goes on, and everybody in the house wakes up because our bodies come out of that hibernation mode. So that can be something to look at if you're struggling with early morning wake-ups, is making sure that the thermostat is set to a good temperature. Also, for the room environment, a lot of kids are really sensitive to any kind of light. A lot of kids aren't. Like, I am super sensitive to light. The moment the sun is coming through my room, I wake up. Even though I'm not a morning person, it wakes me up. My son, not as much as me, right? So So I have done blackout curtains. It's not totally black in his room, but it's darker. And some kids can sleep just fine with it. So really paying attention to what time your child's waking up, if it's the moment that the sun is coming in, if there's anything you can do to darken the room because you notice that's waking them up, that can be helpful too. And then sort of like I talked about before, the wind down period, just how important that is. So not only for bedtime, right? We have that bath, books, snuggles, prayers, all of that right before bed, but also really important for nap time, right? We might be in the middle of doing something really fun. You look at your watch like, oh, it's nap, come on, let's go. And you rush into their room and you're wondering why it's taking so long for them to fall asleep. Well, a lot of that can be that you didn't go through the routine with them. They didn't have time to settle and wind down. So you obviously don't have to do, a bath for every nap, but finding something that works for you and your schedule to offer your child just to help them to fall asleep. Also important is turning off electronics, and especially in the evening. A lot of people will do like a movie before bed or a TV show right after dinner. It's like, okay, you get your reward of the TV show, and I'm super guilty of that. And I notice every night that I do that, it takes my son longer to fall asleep, right? Just like me, if I'm sitting out watching TV instead of reading a book in bed, it takes me longer to fall asleep too. So being aware of turning off electronics 30 to 90 minutes before bedtime can be really helpful. Even turning on some relaxing music in the background, asking your child, do you want to listen to this music or that music, right? Giving them those choices again so that they can feel like they're part of that decision making. So a couple sleep-promoting apps, especially for older kids. The Hatch is a great one. I talked about that already. That's what we have. We used it as a sound machine when I brought my son Lennon home from the hospital, and he's 5, and we still use it. So it's a bigger purchase. I think it's, like $60. So it seems like a lot at first when you're buying it, but if you look at it, we've used it for 5 years now, so it's definitely paid off, and it has so many different tools that you can use with every age. The Moshi app was actually created to help children with anxiety, especially around bedtime. So the stories that they tell can help to regulate a child, help them with their emotions, help them to not have as much anxiety, especially around bedtime. And then children's meditation is another one that a lot of my clients like. They're just really sweet stories that kids can listen to as they fall asleep. And not something that you want to play all night long, right? Because somebody might be talking and then they pause and then they talk again, and that can be disruptive to overnight sleep. Same with music. You don't want to be playing music, although lullabies are super relaxing and help to calm your child. You don't want that all night long because then maybe a song stops and it goes back on, and that's what's waking your child up. But finding something that maybe you play for 8 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes so that once they fall asleep, it goes off pretty quickly into sleep. And then these can all be things that you use as part of your bedtime routine too. So maybe after your child gets out of the bath, they're all wound up, they're ready to go, and you're trying to calm them down. Maybe that could be a time that you turn on one of these stories that your child wants to come in the room and listen to it, right? It helps to settle them down. So all really great things for them. Sleep regressions. So sleep regressions happen to every single baby, whether you know they're happening or not. And what sleep regressions really are developmental milestones happening with your child. So around that 4-month period is when they're starting to roll, they're becoming more active, they're coming out of that 4th trimester that you've probably heard about, where they're really like awakening into their personality. So this is one of the biggest ones where maybe your child has been sleeping really great, you're getting long stretches overnight, and then super abruptly your baby starts waking up every half an hour, every 2 hours, or their naps are all over the place, or they're up for hours at a time in the night. So really being able to acknowledge what's happening and being able to look like, oh, my baby is 4 months old, I bet this is what's happening. Sometimes, especially for me as a mom, when I know what it is, it sort of makes me feel more relieved, like, okay, it's this, like, it's not anything else, I don't have to worry about it, and you can really focus on that. So signs of sleep regressions, like I said, it can just be waking up more frequently, having longer stretches of awake time. Maybe even a younger baby is fighting naps all day long, and you have a 4-month-old that's only taking 1 half an hour nap all day long. And what you want to do is keep your consistent routine in your schedule. Keep offering those naps. Keep offering whatever you need to do. Maybe go for a walk in the stroller, baby wear, go for a ride in the car, take a shower and let the baby hear like the relaxing sounds in the background, and really just follow through so that your baby can get through that regression a lot faster. Making sure that you're offering more time during the day on the skills that they're working on. So, for example, tummy time. Maybe you feel like, okay, we've done enough tummy time. My baby hates tummy time. If you feel like you've already offered enough, like offer 5 more minutes that day so that your baby can really have time to practice those skills that they're working on and trying to master. And things like that will help you to get through those regressions a lot faster. The 24-month regression, I always feel like is the worst one. Like the 4-month is horrible because you're still a new mom. You're trying to figure it all out. Like you think you have it figured out and then that hits. But the 24-month regression is when I have a lot of people come to me and say, like, my child's not napping anymore. They don't need this nap. Like, we're done with it. What should I do? They're a mess by the afternoon. They're waking up all night long. I don't know what to do. And so this is a time when I say continue to offer that nap. Usually, it's really, really rare that I have somebody with a 2-year-old that can go the whole day without napping and not just be exhausted and interrupt with their nighttime sleep. So knowing that, most children need a nap until closer to 3 on the earlier side. So continuing to offer that maybe it'll be a month of offering it where your child's not napping, but then all of a sudden one day they just start napping again, and maybe they nap for a whole other year. And that happened with my son. He napped until he was 4, and at the 24-month period, he went almost an entire month without taking a nap. And I just had to remind myself, okay, it's the regression. I'm not going to give up because as much as he needed that nap, I needed that nap time too. So something too that I talked about a lot was consistency. Not only for nighttime, but just everything you offer with your child. The same nap time, the same things in the same order throughout the day can be really helpful. I know that's not realistic every day, but especially if you offer that just a few minutes before bedtime to help promote sleep for your child. Your child really needs that for those signals for their brain to turn off and get ready for sleep. And rushing through that just usually backfires. So I always say, try to make sure that you get even a little bit of a routine in. So that's all I have to talk about today, and I completely forgot to bring my business cards. I'm so sorry. So if you want to take pictures of my information, you can call me, text me, email me, follow me on Instagram, and I always offer 15-minute free consultation calls. I feel like it's a great way not only to learn about a family and their sleep struggles and talk about their sleep goals, but it's a good opportunity for us to get to know if we're going to be able to work together, right? Making sure that we're a good fit because I offer a certain way of my sleep plans, right? Like if you want a phone call or an email support or in-person support. So making sure that what I offer is something that you feel like is going to work for you and your family. And then also I put a discount code on there for everybody that's here today or watching. You can just put that in the checkout, and you'll get a little bit of a discount too. And then I believe we're gonna open it up to a couple. Oh, sorry, no, we're gonna do questions. Yeah, so we're gonna do a little Q&A if anybody has any sleep questions, like if you want them to be more specific or if you can make them a little bit more broad to help everyone.
I think we have a question back here.
I think she's walking around with a microphone. Sorry.
Hi, I